Hello and welcome. So this video is going to go over some techniques that will help us in one of those familiar moves that so many of us want to do smoothly, but oftentimes our body doesn't quite let us get there. And that is that transition from our downward facing dog and lifting that leg through forward and coming up into that nice crescent pose. So the hips sometimes can be a little tight. And if that's the case, we can use a few techniques to just help get into the joint movement. So I started out in a chair. This is a great one to start with, sitting with your back all the way against the back of the chair. You just grab a knee and pull it up. So you can start with that sit bone of the lifted leg lifting up. But the goal is to see if you can work that sit bone down and maybe move that hip by making the knee slide a little inwards. Maybe if you're starting to feel a little bit of looseness happening, you can come forward, hook the arm into that joint. And all of that's going to be creating some stretching right here in those muscles and tendons and ligaments that hold the hip joint. All right. Some other things we can think about is strengthening into the muscle. So sitting at the edge, you can just start off by simply lifting the leg and pulling the knee up towards the chest. So we want to keep the back nice and tall as we do that. And if we go nice and slow, flexing the foot and pulling it up, you can even give it a little bit of help here to begin with, but ideally we want to strengthen that muscle. So maybe you get it up to here and you give it a little extra to stretch. All right, so we've worked the muscle that can pull the leg up, and we've also given a little bit of stretching into the joint so that it can feel smooth to move. Now, if you have a little issue getting on the floor into your downward dog to begin with, you can always practice this from a standing position, bringing the hands down as if you were placing them on the floor and placing the feet back and finding a nice downward facing dog here. Remember, those shoulders drop away from the ears. That's going to help protect into that shoulder joint. So we can lift back one leg, and you can always adjust your feet slightly so that you can bring that foot forward and up onto a chair. Now you can just reach into that hip joint. So again, just using this to help stretch. If your leg's not quite ready to come all the way up into the chair, you can just bring it forward. But see if you can remember that bend and step and coming up into your crescent pose. Nice. Another modification that you can do could be to place some blocks on the floor. And that way, from your downward facing dog, you don't have to lift the foot all the way into the chest to step it forward, but still able to get it through. So sometimes just raising the hands up slightly. A good way to practice this is from a tabletop pose. So if your wrists are just not happy, staying in downward dog for too long, you can come into a tabletop pose, and we can start working through that cat-cow. We can extend back that leg, roll the shoulders away from the ears, and then begin that cat pose. So that's the rounded back. That's going to give me the space to pull my thigh up. I'm going to flex my foot and slip those toes through and come on up. So that's going to be a good challenge of working into that hip joint and exercising that muscle. Sometimes we can pull the knee out, come up on the fingertips. You could do the same thing with your blocks here. Bring it out and step it through, rounding the back to transition. Same thing with our downward facing dog. So once we're here, we all know our yoga instructors have told us, take whatever you need to do, maybe a few steps, maybe you need to drop to the knee and bring that foot forward and then lift it back up. So you can take any of those options, but to work towards that smooth transition, we can lift and then shift your weight forward as you round your back, pull the thigh towards the chest, flex the foot to slip those toes through, and then come on up into that crescent pose. So I hope there was some information in there that could help you get into that hip joint and maybe find a little more fluidity in your transition from downward dog to crescent pose. Looking forward to seeing you again soon. Have a great day.